Good Friday evening, everybody. Um, just doing my normal Friday show, but just a little bit early. Um, I'm probably going to take my time with this. I don't know how long this one's going to be. I mean, it might be about average length, or I don't know, maybe shorter, maybe longer, but there were some things I needed to basically go over tonight. Uh, I'm going to discuss what occurred with the meeting that I discussed last time having to do with the Federal Reserve and what their meeting basically entailed. I did some reading upon that today and found out what actually came out of that. Also, going to be discussing the developments in the proxy conflict and some interesting admissions that have come out, and I'm going to also read some facts and figures. Um, so that's going to be gone over in some detail. And I'm going to take my time again because in my last video, due to my brain damage from my head injury from Iraq, I noticed that some of my aphasia symptoms sort of emerged a bit. I jumble, which is when I basically, jumble up words and they come out wrong at times, or slur, or things like that. It's called aphasia. It's a symptom of brain damage, head injuries, but it's also a symptom of things like strokes. If people have strokes, they could also be affected with that. But I've told people who have been with me for a long time, they know I have these issues, and sometimes it makes communication a little bit off here and there. But all that aside, I'm also going to be discussing China, and I'm going to tie everything together. So some of the developments, like I said, have to do with the Federal Reserve meeting. Oh, and I'm also going to talk about the potential for an FF event too. I almost forgot about that. But anyways, the issue with the meeting at the Fed basically entails that um, they're going to be raising interest rates as of the 15th, which was yesterday. They're going to be raising interest rates by a 0.5%. Thinking, and wrongly thinking, might I say, this seems deliberate to me. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, but wrongly believing that that's going to help deflate the inflation, when in fact it's actually going to hurt things and make things much worse. And I'm going to explain why. I was on AEI.org today reading about this. I also read about it in Barron's and Forbes and Bloomberg, of course, which are all nothing but stock market propaganda pieces. But if you know how to read between the lines and you know how to sort fact from fiction, you can really get a great idea of what's actually happening here. Now, again, reading between the lines means that you can sort through their word salad and their semantics, a lot of semantics, and you can pick out the pertinent pieces of information and basically mix and match it in such a way to where you've analyzed the information and you put it together to make a real coherent picture of what's actually happening. So here's the thing with that. When they had their meeting that I discussed in my last live, when I said I didn't know, nobody knows what the meeting's going to be. What is this? Is this like a default, or what is it? Well, come to find out, it's in raising the interest rates even by like a 0.5%, and also saying that they're going to be redeeming 60 billion per month of treasuries, so meaning that they're going to pay treasuries off by redeeming them. they're basically having to print more money to do that, and not only that, but these interest rates. It's going to really, really hurt the stock market. I can't stand the stock market anyway. It's all corrupt. It's all crooked. It's all, money magic, with these Western satanic banking elites. But here's the thing, you know, it's going to kill the ability to be investing into the markets because it's going to remove liquidity from the markets by the interest rates going up. So that is what they're saying they're wanting to do to deflate things, but in all reality, what it's going to do is hurt things even more. Now, what they don't seem to understand over there, or maybe they understand it very well, and this is why they're doing it, is that there's a law of supply and demand in any economic system. When there's a lack of a supply and a high demand, prices are going to be through the roof. So it doesn't matter what they raise these rates to. It's not going to fix the supply situation whatsoever at all. In fact, I even read in that AEI.org site, I even read some interesting factoids in that. Now, the U.S. economy as of this year has shrunk. Remember, back in 2020, I reported their own numbers that our economy had shrunk by a third. A third of American GDP, a third of the economy with it was gone. It was gone. So now we're looking at basically half of the economy being gone. Those are the figures given in the AEI.org site. Now, what they said is that 12 trillion or 50% of American GDP is gone. It's gone. So our economy by this year has shrunk in half. Just like I've told people. Well, this site confirmed it. So the supply and demand situation. You have a lack of supplies. We've been deindustrialized. We have to get foreign components. The supply chain's breaking down because of the fuel situation. Also, food production and all the sabotage. With all the plants, the foodstuffs facilities, the lack of fuel to run the combines and other farming machinery, tractors, what have you. It's taking a toll on food production. So now you have a lack of food compared to what we had in more abundant times. So food prices are going to skyrocket regardless of whatever type of monetary policies they put in place. And these policies are going to do more damage than good. So they're going to take an already horrible situation and make it worse. They're going to make it worse. And I even read that their goal is to slow down the economy. They're trying to slow it down. So the question is, why do you want to slow down an already fragile, hemorrhaging, economy that's dying? If anything, wouldn't you want it to grow? Well, their goal, as stated, was that they want to slow it down. And what'll that do? Well, that will do this. It'll make the unemployment rate skyrocket much higher than it already is. It's already bad, folks. It's going to get worse. So there's going to be less money for investments because they raised the rates. It's going to be a disaster. So I read in all these different articles about all these issues, and I pieced it all together, and that's basically what I found. So from here on out, this next year, like I said in the last live, is not going to look good by any metric or standard. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Because these banksters, they're not nobody's friend. They don't care about anybody. They only care about their bottom line and about how they're going to enrich themselves. So that's exactly what they're doing here. They're making a situation worse so that they can keep making more and more money while they're parasiting off of a dying economy. They're killing the host. They're killing the host. So you've got that going on with the conclusion of that meeting. So that is going to make the situation drastically worse by next year. Just like I said in the last live, I suspected as much. So, anyways, moving on to the proxy conflict. Now, the head proxy general, Zaluzny, he has asked for an additional 300 main battle tanks and 800 armor personnel carriers. Now, he says he needs that just to even be able to stabilize the situation, because he's also said that he really can't launch any more major offensives because he has two remaining brigades that are in any type of shape, in any sort of shape, to launch any kind of offensive. Because, like I've been telling everybody, and like I've also been showing other people, telling everybody in the community tabs as well, their forces have been ground down to dangerously low levels, and their equipment as well. They started off this conflict, on a fairly positive footing. They actually had quite a bit of armor, tanks, when they started this conflict, armor personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, the whole nine. They had a decent amount of equipment. Now, over the past 8 months, that has all been destroyed. So what they've been doing is they've been getting foreign weapons delivered to them. A lot of them coming from the easternmost NATO nations, because they have a lot of leftover old Soviet-era equipment because they were part of the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was the Soviet NATO equivalent for the Eastern European nations. So you have Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, other nations like that, Romania, the whole nine. So you had these countries with, old stocks of old Soviet equipment left over, and they've been giving a lot of them away to the proxy country in exchange for more modernized items from the rest of the West, the collective West, to replace what they gave away. But here's the deal. So that's taking away from our stocks. And you have country like Germany already having had given away hundreds of vehicles between all the Martyrs they've given away. The Martyrs are an infantry fighting vehicle type. The Gepards, which are a point air defense type of weapon. Gepards, they have, what is it, 2 35-millimeter cannons, autocannons, and they also have Stinger pods on them too. Now, a Gepard is actually a fairly advanced, point defense type of system. It's like the Soviet-era ZSU, but a little bit better. The newer ZSUs that Russia's upgraded probably have much better tracking radars on them now, but, for their air defense. But those are point defense. Those are for like use against helicopters or like low flying attack aircraft coming down on like their like an attack run, like strafing or dropping munitions. Now, those are point defense for like ground units. That's like air defense for like ground units to protect them from attack helicopters or low-flying ground attack aircraft doing attack runs and such. But anyways, the Germans have given away even Leopard 1s. They've given away Leopard 1s that they had in storage. Now, the Germans are tapped out. The Germans have already said that they're tapped out, that they can't give any more, because to give any more would cut into their own military's stocks, because these weapons that they'd given away were largely weapons that had been put into long-term storage. Now they had brought them out, and Kraus Maffei Industries has refurbed some of the Leopard 1s and the Gepards and the Martyrs, and got them ready for use by the proxy country. So now they're sending Patriot missiles to them too. So for more like wider air defense needs, because Patriots are made to shoot at higher flying targets, like actual higher flying aircraft, like fighter jets or strategic heavy bombers, or ground attack aircraft when they're flying higher in the air. Now, that's not going to make much of a difference, though, because the types of electronic warfare systems that the Russians have, like the Kirkuk system, can outright jam all of that stuff and make it ineffective. It's sort of like how the Chinese KG-600 can do the same thing. It's designed specifically with suppressing radars, whether that be targeting radars for air defense batteries or whether it be any other type of radar. Now, they're designed with that in mind. Now, just like the Russian Kirkuk system that they used to shut off the Donald Cook, not once, but twice. Once in 2014, and the same ship, same place, a second time in the Black Sea, in early 2021. It happened again. So T-72s were also given. MiG-29s, MiG-23s, and Su-25s. They've been given to replace the heavy losses sustained by the proxy country's Air Force. Now, we've given away so many freakish amounts of anti-tank systems that it's seriously depleted our own armed forces. In their anti-tank, their portable, man-portable anti-tank systems, it has seriously impeded our capabilities in that specific domain. And also you have the AN/TPQ counter battery radars for artillery, like the AN/TPQ 36, 37, 53 series. We already had very limited stocks of those. Now they've given away 50, perhaps even more by now. The last count was 50. So 3,000 Stinger missiles, too, for the man-portable air defense. This stuff is seriously cutting into our ability to wage any type of effective ground campaign. This is really hurting us. We've also given them hundreds of howitzers between the M777s, which the last count was over 130. We've given them that many of those. We've given them M119s in several batches of 20. Some came from us, but some also came from Britain, because Britain had old stocks of those too. So, also the HIMARS. Now, a lot of the HIMARS batteries we sent had been destroyed, so we've been repeatedly sending them more to pick up the slack for their losses. The first batch was roughly 16 HIMARS, but as you can imagine now, it's probably grown substantially. But that was the last known count. Now, Germany, you have to understand, like I've read you guys the stats on Germany, Italy, France, and Britain, all combined versus Russia, they were already at a severe deficit in tanks, in artillery, in armored vehicles, IFVs, APCs. They were already, and especially artillery, especially in artillery. They were woefully outgunned in artillery. And you can't fight an effective war without artillery. And Russia outguns NATO severely in artillery. It's just not even a competition. I mean, NATO has already between all the vehicles, all the artillery, all the aircraft, all the stocks of anti-tank systems, all the artillery ammunition for howitzers, all of this stuff, all of it. Between all the stuff that's already been fed into that black hole of a conflict, NATO's depleted over 15%. 15%. And when I say NATO, I'm talking about the entire collective West. They have depleted themselves of over 15% of their overall capacity to be able to wage any kind of conflict. Because we've given also, I know the M113s are fairly old armor personnel carriers because, of course, we have newer, better ones like the Strykers and such. But still, we've given away hundreds of M113s. And other nations have given away, like I read what Germany gave away. You know, France has given things. Britain has given things. When I say NATO's, I'm talking about the whole combined collective West. Plus what the easternmost NATO nations have given too, like with the T-72s, the MiGs, the Su-25s, you know, things like that. They have lost over 15% of their capacity to wage war. And if they decide to grant Zelensky's request for 300 additional main battle tanks and 800 additional armor personnel carriers, that's going to take that number up there pretty close to a quarter of the overall capacity for NATO to wage any type of effective conflict. I mean, the ammunition alone that was given away already hinders it substantially. I mean, it's none of that stuff is easy to replace. It takes an entire year to even be able to produce 250 270 millimeter rockets. 250. And we have given away about 10,000 of those 270 millimeter rockets. That's about half of our stocks of rocket artillery ammunition for both the HIMARS and for the M270, the MLRS. So we've given them half of our rocket artillery ammo, 2/3 of all our howitzer artillery ammo, because we've given them what amounts to 2 million shells between the 105 millimeter howitzer ammunition and the 155 for the heavier artillery pieces, like the M777 or the M198s, you know, or the Paladins. Those are all American artillery pieces that fire the 155. So we've given them all of this ammunition, especially in artillery, to where it has seriously hindered our abilities, along with the anti-tank systems. Now, we've given them tens of thousands. We've given them a grand total of 45,000 anti-tank systems, including the over 8,000 Javelins that we've given them. Those are some of our best types of systems. So as far as man-portable anti-tank systems are concerned, you know, the rest are things like, you know, like AT-4s, LAWs, tow missiles, just the whole gamut of different types of anti-tank systems. So, you know, you have all of this stuff being given away, and 3,000 Stingers as well for the man-portable air defense. That's nothing to sneeze at to give away that much. Now, keep in mind, all the things I just read you, the stocks are severely limited. They're severely limited. So when all these things were given away, some of the production lines for some of these items are no longer active. They're no longer active. You know, look, that Strategic Studies Institute chart that came out like late April, like early on in this thing, you know, it conveyed not only the amounts that were given early on, and many of those amounts have increased substantially since that time period because this thing has gone on for going on 9 months. Now it started in late February, so now here we are. We're in the middle of December. So early on in this thing, late April, that was when that Strategic Studies Institute chart came out, showing all the different things that we've already given by that point in time, and we've given a lot more since then. So it shows not only the systems and how much we're given, but it also shows what the status of production is. If the production lines are even active, or if they're semi-active, or if they're not active at all. And many of these items that were given away, their production lines are no longer active, or if they are, they're semi-active. And we rely on so many foreign components to be able to build our higher tech equipment. And a lot of that comes from communist China. So yeah, so they have back doors into things. Speaking of that, here in Texas, where I live, there was a F-35 at some sort of air testing event, and it appeared just by looking at the footage that thing had been hacked. You should have seen what was happening with it. It looked like that thing had been hacked and taken control over. And I know that a lot of our higher end stuff uses Chinese components because we always go with the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder. Contrary to popular belief, we don't buy Taiwanese, we buy Chinese, which gives them a back door into everything that involves the use of their components and their chips. So that thing straight up looked like it was hijacked by the Chinese. It looked like they took control of it, they hacked it, and they made it do a whole bunch of things. I'm sure that pilot was probably told, because he did manage to get out safely. He ejected. He used the ejector seat and bailed out. I'm sure they told that pilot not to say a damn thing because of how embarrassing it is. So that is a real threat. You'll notice for the thumbnail that I used the American flag with the Chinese flag overlaid over it, to signify New China, which is what this place is going to become when the Chinese and their allies like the Russians and the others come and take it over. So we're in a really, really bad shape. Now keep in mind, China hasn't even done anything yet. They've not even done anything yet. And we're having this hard of a time with Russia. And China is so much bigger than Russia, especially in conventional terms and industry terms, economic terms. What the hell are we supposed to do once China gets involved in this? They have the biggest, most technologically advanced navy on the face of the earth. And out of that, their subfleet is the biggest subfleet. Their technology is through the roof now. It has grown by many leaps and bounds since the 90s. And that happened by them getting the crown jewels from the West and using that technology that they stole through all their espionage, all their forms of espionage, not the least of which being academic, the technology itself. They use that to build their own indigenous capabilities. And now look where we are. They have the most advanced cyber warfare program in the world, and they invest the most money into theirs. They have the most advanced electronic warfare in the world, alongside of Russia, who also has phenomenal electronic warfare capabilities as well. China has anti-satellite weapons, as does Russia too. China has the biggest air defense arm on the face of the earth. They, along with Russia, are about tied with artillery because of all the stuff China has in storage for all their reserve and paramilitary forces, along with what they have active, China's a monster. They have the biggest tank fleet on the face of the earth. I've gone over all the numbers of that before. In case anybody's forgotten, you can go back and watch so many videos where I cover the Chinese numbers. They have the biggest combat air fleet in the world. Not overall Air Force, not just yet, but they're getting there. They're getting there quick. The only reason our Air Force is even slightly bigger than China's at this point is because we have more support aircraft than they do, because we have this humongous air mobility command. You know, we also have a lot of AWACS, we have a lot of mid-air refuelers, we have a lot of trainer aircraft, which are all different types of support aircraft. Now, China, though, their combat air fleet, it's a lot bigger than our combat air fleet is. You know, they have AWACS, they have mid-air refuelers, they have cargo aircraft, they have trainers, but they just don't have the numbers of support aircraft yet that we have. But they have this massive ability to wage a combative air war because they have the biggest combat air fleet on the face of the earth. They outnumber us by about 1,050 aircraft, combat aircraft. When I'm saying combat air fleet versus combat air fleet. China's combat air fleet is immense. It's enormous, and it's highly advanced. It's all 4th, 4.5, and 5th generation aircraft entirely. And I'm talking about their combat air fleet. You know, they've come a long way since the 90s. So they have this immense ability to wage a wide air campaign. While we, on the other hand, you know, we're lacking severely in the number of combat aircraft that our enemy China has. You know, Russia has a little bit more than us because I count Russia's storage bombers that they keep well maintained, and you know, they keep in storage for their air reserves. You know, Russia really, if you're not just going off active and you go off all the stored aircraft that they've kept since the end of the Cold War, that they've maintained, that they've upgraded, Russia has the biggest strategic bomber fleet in the world. It's actually not China in strategic bombers, but it's China in overall combat aircraft because China has more fighters and ground attack aircraft than any nation on Earth. So when you add that to their second biggest strategic bomber fleet, they outnumber us and Russia by a lot of aircraft. And they have the second biggest naval aviation fleet, air fleet. So after ours, we still have a little bit more in when it comes to naval aviation, but it doesn't matter because China's air force is so massive. Their air fleet, their combat air fleet is so massive that they still outnumber us, even though that, like I'm saying, if you put their naval aviation together with their Air Force aviation, and you put our naval combat aircraft with our Air Force combat aircraft, they still outnumber us by a big gulf. So they're a monster, and their army and paramilitary is the largest fighting force on the face of the earth. Almost 30 million men under arms. We, on the other hand, have 2.2 in our military. We don't have anything near what they have. And they're purging our military as I'm speaking these words. They're getting rid of some of the best people that would have even been able to even give it some sort of a backbone. You know, they're talking about eliminating 500,000, about a quarter of our remaining forces for not taking their little thing in the arm. So it's a horrendous situation. We're outnumbered by China in basically every category, minus there's only three that I can think of that we have more of than China, but it doesn't matter because China has countermeasures, like their humongous air defense arm. We outnumber them in helicopters by about 2 times, but China's recently started to put more money into their helicopters, into their production of helicopters. So they probably are doing that now because they see that we already have the biggest air defense arm in the world. You know, American aviation's not really a threat to us. Okay, now we can start focusing on producing more helicopters. And they've been building them fast, too. They've been adding new helicopters fast. Between their attack helicopters and their cargo aircraft, their cargo helicopters, their utility helicopters, they've been adding a few hundred each year between both categories in the last few years. That's fast. That is fast. So I've already told you about their production capacity, how enormous their military industrial complex is. Nobody even comes close to their military industrial complex. They just can't. Nobody can outproduce China or come even close to their production. They're cranking out aircraft carriers quick. They're already working on a fifth one, and they're about to launch their fourth one. We may have about 6 more aircraft carriers, but the age of the carrier is obsolete. It's for power projection, it's obsolete because China has countermeasures to the carriers. They've got the biggest sub fleet in the world, and we all know what subs can do to an entire carrier group, like the French sub Sapphire demonstrated in that 2015 NATO exercise. They sunk a whole carrier group, and China has way better subs than the French. So, they have the biggest sub fleet in the world because they have the biggest navy on Earth and the biggest sub fleet as part of that biggest navy on Earth. They have the biggest land-based missile forces on Earth. Sure, they only have 1,000 nukes. They only have, X amount of nuclear missiles, but all the rest of their ballistic missile forces, their intermediate range, medium range, short range, those are all conventionally armed, whereas their long range ones, they save for the nukes. But, of course, if they're going to hit a target in another continent, they're going to want to do it with nukes. But all the rest of their humongous, massive, ginormous, cruise missile and ballistic missile forces, they have everything they need to sink ships with ease, with great ease. They have humongous batteries of anti-ship missiles, coastal batteries. They also have standoff cruise missiles that can be launched from their strategic bomber fleet in the air, which can hit ships from a great distance. They also have ground attack aircraft like the Flying Leopard, which is the JH-7. They even have some Q-5s left in storage. They can equip those. The Flying Leopards, the JH-7s, have been equipped with the KG-600 so that they can easily suppress radars and destroy air defense grids or sink ships or whatever it is that they need to do with them. They can do it. So they have all these options. They have everything from carrier killer ballistic missiles like the DF-21D, the Dongfeng 21D, the DF-26B. Those are, which is even longer range than the DF-21D is. They have all these options they can use to destroy our Navy, easily, especially if they get a first hit. Like if they draw first blood, it's over. It's all the way over. Our Navy's not going to escape at all. Like none of the ships are going to get away. If they draw first blood, it's over. It's like entirely over. And even if they don't, they're going to still sink about like 95% of our Navy, unless it's like whatever ship is just, way out of reach at the time, that it's just not worth going after, but, they have what it takes to destroy us easily in a war. Easily. All their newest systems that they've been churning out, and even their older upgraded stuff that gets passed down the line to, third-rate units and such, they're just a monster. They're just cranking stuff out so quick. Nobody can compete with that. Nobody. But back to the proxy issue. I just read off all those systems and all the things that have been given away so far, and you've got Zaluzny, the leader of the proxy army, still begging for weapons, begging just to even be able to stabilize it, because he said himself, he admitted that they're losing. Finally, they're telling the truth that they're losing. If you all don't know who Carl Gustav Mannerheim is, he was the leader of Finland, just like they spoke of on the Duran channel today. He was a leader of Finland during the Soviet-Finnish War, when the Soviet Union tried to invade Finland. And Finland, they were brave. They put up the best fight they could, but they lost. And Carl Gustav Mannerheim, he gave a speech to all his troops after they lost the war, and he said that, the West didn't keep its promises. We didn't have any help from the West, so we got defeated by this great power, the Soviet Union, who just wore us down, And that's what Zaluzny said, is that if he doesn't get humongous, copious amounts of assistance soon from the West, which the West really can't afford to deliver on, but if he said that if he doesn't get copious amounts of assistance from the West soon, that he's going to have to concede to defeat. He himself even said that the Russians, he believes that they're going to invade from the north, which, is most likely what's going to happen anyway. But he said that 200,000 of this massive invasion force that Russia put together would go for Kiev. 200,000, which that might be true. They probably would. Because with 200,000 to take a city like Kiev, that's definitely enough. That's definitely enough. It's not like when they did their pinning action at the beginning of this thing, where they sent like a regiment and a battalion, the 104th Guards Aviation Regiment and a Spetsnaz battalion. That's only like 4,000 troops. Now you can't take a city of the size of Kiev with 4,000 troops. I don't care how damn elite they are or good they are. That's not enough personnel. That was a pinning action. The second time is going to be for real. That's going to be for real. That's the real invasion when they come in with these hundreds of thousands of troops, this 540,000 man army that they build up in Belarus and then also in the Belgorod region of Russia, just north of eastern Ukraine. That is going to be the main sweeping force that's going to finish this thing. And to me, it wouldn't make sense for them to build up all those forces to not use them in some grand finale type of move, in some final, massive sucker punch death blow. It's look, they've got the limited incursion forces, those 70 battalions, and they've been reinforcing them with more troops. So all in all, by this point, the original 63 to 65,000 men that have been there all those months in the East, they're starting to get reinforced too. So you have these 540,000 spread from the southern border of Belarus all the way into the southern border of Russia with eastern Ukraine. Then you got whatever other forces that they're moving into the east to reinforce those limited incursion forces who have been there since the beginning. So no way in hell does Ukraine even have a chance. They just don't. They don't. They have no chance. It's basically over, and they're conceding to the fact that it's over. They themselves made those statements. Their head general. And he said he only has 2 effective brigades that could be used in some sort of limited, very limited offensive. Because a brigade's not very big. We're talking like, 3 to maybe at very maximum, 3 to 7,000 troops, if you're going by like Ukraine sizes. That's and 2 of those is not very big, by themselves. Yes, they do have 190,000 troops left, combat forces. They have 190,000, but they're not equipped. They're not properly equipped to be able to take on the forces that they're being asked to hold out against. That's why they've been continually begging for more and more weapons, but it's depleting us. It's depleting us of vital stocks of ammunition and also vehicles. It's taking away from our vehicles, from the collective NATO alliance. Not just us, but the Germans, the French, the British, they've been giving away a lot of their stuff too. And they really don't have it to be able to give away. They're weakening themselves substantially on a proxy conflict that's going wrong, horribly wrong. NATO, in its current state, would get annihilated in a conflict with Russia. Like Alexander said, the guy with the British accent that in that video I shared, he said it. He said it right. He said Russia, due to its size, resources, industries, for the military-industrial complex, their size of their armed forces, that's not a nation that the West should want to go to war with. And then what he said about China immediately thereafter, he said China about tenfold what Russia is, meaning that China is this giant, this behemoth, and they are. They really are. And they haven't even done anything yet. Wait till they do. Oh man, wait till they do. It's not looking good. The West is depleting its ability and its capabilities to wage any type of war. This is very dangerous. Am I like the only one that sees how dangerous all this is? I mean, it's a rhetorical question. Surely I'm not, but I'm saying just the blasé attitude that so many people have about this entire thing is all the way wrong. It's a very blasé sort of attitude. Like they act as if that, just because it's not happening here yet, that it'll never affect us in any type of bad way. All the way wrong. Epic fail. Wrong fail. Wrong fail. We are not in any type of war-fighting condition. We don't have the industries to be able to replace the losses of what had been given away. We just don't have it anymore. We don't have it. This is dangerous. Very dangerous. These Western elite asshats are running this place into the ground mercilessly. They're destroying this place. And just, 90% of our fellow countrymen, I mean, if you can call it that, we live in this evil corporation, but this, 90% of our fellow Americans don't even see the dangers inherent with all of this, with this disaster. All the money that's been given at a time when we have infrastructure failing, when we have infrastructure even under attack, and I'm going to get to that pretty soon too. When we have all of this stuff happening at home, Jackson, Mississippi, Florida, the list goes on and on. All the droughts out west, all the fires out west. That we've had. This is a really, really horrible situation that we're in, and we're giving money to foreign nations, money that would be much better spent right here at home. It's lunacy. It's insanity. It's psychotic. It's psychopathy. There's really no real word that could articulate the level that this is all sunk to. Disaster is not even enough of a word to articulate this situation with. It's just there has to be a word about 10 times more suitable than disaster even is. So I haven't addressed. Yeah, well, our enemies have plans too, Sylvia. They have enemies too, the Chinese and Russians. They have their own plans. See, these Western elites, their plans to do this sham reset, and it is a sham because it's never going to happen, not the way they want it to. Their plans for this type of reset thing is feeding directly into China and Russia's plans to take us over and colonize us, because they have their own plans that are even separate. They don't care about no reset. They don't care about no green energy. They don't care about the rainbow people things. They don't care about none of that. They're not doing that in their countries. No, in their countries, some measure of sanity still prevails because, men are men, women are women, so on and so forth. But look, they have different agendas, and they've been planning their agendas for a very long time, very long, especially China. But they've wanted to colonize us for a long time, and Russia as well. They want certain lands back. So good to see you, Rebecca and TJ Thapa. Yeah, well, yeah, TJ, they really can't because it's a lot for them to handle because they just don't understand, Yeah, I can throw facts and figures and capabilities and statistics and things at people all day. I can throw it at them all day. I analyze all this stuff and put it together for people to make a big picture. I can do that all day. And people still won't believe it because of their cognitive dissonance, their failure to understand the reality and to see the real dangers, the real threats to our very existence that are going on all around us. It's normalcy bias. They have normalcy bias. Like you said, they're normies. They don't understand how serious this stuff is. They just don't. Yeah, Sylvia, they're fighting for power and control. The East and the West, they're fighting each other. This is all about who gets to run the NWO. And the West is not going to be the winner. It's going to be the East. The 10 kings of Revelation, who all give their power to the beast, they will be 10 Eastern kings. See, the Western mind usually can't fathom such a thing. They can't imagine a world in which the West and its rulers aren't running things, but that's the way it's going to be. They're not going to see these Western elites, they're going to be judged because God is not going to protect them, and the devil, once he's done using people, he kicks them to the curb. He kicks them to the curb. All throughout history, evil has always destroyed other evil. It goes without saying. I mean, the last real big instance was the Soviet Union under Stalin prevailed over Hitler's Germany. Bolshevism versus National Socialism. Both were very, very evil, and both were responsible for many millions of deaths. But evil destroys other evil. That's been the case throughout history. And what you're going to see is that these Western elites are going to be bested by the elites of the East. So that's what's going to happen. China is the world superpower in real terms, real capabilities, real technology, stats, facts, figures, the whole nine, numbers, all of it. I mean, they're just ginormous. They're humongous. Nobody can compete with them. They have 40% of the entire world's industrial base in just their country, in just China. 40%. Nearly half of the world's industry is just in China. That's insane. So they have this ginormous population too. I mean, it's crazy. It's just nobody can compete with that type of power. Nobody. Hey, what's up, Shadow Mask? What about Britain? Well, they're in bad trouble. They're going to be in real big trouble soon. At the rate that they've depleted themselves, along with the Germans, the French, I'm sure Italy too, all like countries like Poland, Romania, all these different countries that have played a role in this, they're going to answer for it. They're all going to answer for it, including Britain. Because Russia and China, now China has troops in Europe. After Vostok ended, the Chinese armored forces moved further west into Belarus to help their Russian and Belarusian allies, because the Sino-Russian coalition have forces all around the world. And the ones that are in Europe, also the ones in Serbia, like I've shown people repeatedly, the Chinese have forces in Serbia. I even provided photographic evidence I mean, look, those forces are there to steamroll the Western Europe when the time comes. The Western Europe will be steamrolled by the Sino-Russian coalition. Because Serbia is a very strategic location because you can lash out at most of Europe from within Serbia. Serbia is within striking distance of a lot of major European nations. It's close to Italy. It's close to Germany. It's close to Poland. I mean, really, it is. It's not that far. I mean, if you do a 500-mile radius around Serbia, you include most of the major European nations. I mean, even 600-mile radius, and you get France. I mean, none of it's far away except for Spain and Portugal, maybe. But if you have forces in Serbia, especially with the type of missile technologies, the type of air defense technologies, the range of artillery, the armored forces that can lash out, you're within striking distance of virtually all major European nations. Like I said, minus maybe like Spain, Portugal, and Britain itself, but France, Germany, Italy, Poland, these European nations are all within striking distance. And then, of course, you have Belarus, just to the east of Poland, bordering Poland. You even have a part of Russia along the Baltic Sea. Russian air defense forces and missile forces there, because they have missile forces there too, with Iskanders, other short and medium range missiles. Those missiles that are in that that part of Russia along the Baltic. It used to be part of East Prussia. East Prussia was part of Germany before World War II ended, and then after World War II, the Soviet Union, now Russia, but the Soviet Union at the time, got that territory, and it was formally annexed by Russia. And after the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union broke up, Russia got to keep that part. So where Kaliningrad, which used to be Königsberg, is where the Russians have these massive forces based, whether they're missile forces from their strategic rocket forces, whether it's their naval assets, their air defense forces. They're within striking distance of virtually like 80% of Europe, just right there. Then you got the forces in Belarus, the Chinese, Belarusian, and Russian forces all sitting in Belarus. You got the Serbs and the Chinese in Serbia. I mean, if war were to break out, Europe would be toast. It would be overrun in no time. It's the counter buildup that NATO did in Poland is nowhere even near what the Russians were able to pull together for this invasion of the proxy country. Nowhere near it. 30-something thousand troops total in Poland with, backed up by close to 1,000 tanks and whatever else they brought. Surely they don't have that much artillery because we know how woefully depleted the artillery is. That's not enough to do anything except for maybe try to be some sort of a speed bump if the Russians decide to turn to the west and keep on going after they finish off the proxy. It would just be a speed bump, maybe to buy a few days of time or a week maybe at the most, but in the woeful state of depletion and the woke military we have, I mean, it probably wouldn't even, they'd probably crumble under that type of pressure. I can't remember who said it, but somebody recently, in the last year, said, if the U.S. went to war with Russia, what would the casualties be like? And somebody said 40,000 in the first day on our side. 40,000. Because unlike what the Russians did in the proxy conflict so far, they would unleash everything they have at us. They wouldn't hold back. They wouldn't go in soft. They would go in very hard. So you would then see what a real force that Russia actually has and the capabilities that they have if they were to fight a country that they didn't that they did not consider a brother nation. Because you have to remember, the proxy country that's being invaded, they used to be part of the USSR. This would be like if, I don't know, if, like a part of America broke off, but the rest of America, the bigger piece that remained of America wanted to go in and invade it. But of course, since they used to be part of America, you would see them as like a brother people. I don't know, say if like California became its own country and, say the rest of whatever remained of America wanted to invade it, they'd want to go in soft. They wouldn't want to go in hard because, you would view them as like a brother people. It'd be sort of like Canadians to us, it'd be like if we invaded Canada, we wouldn't want to be brutal towards them, because we would see them as like a brother people. That's how the Russians feel about the Ukrainians. That's how they feel about the Ukrainians. They see them as like a brother people because they used to be part of the same country, the Soviet Union, and then before that, the Russian Empire. So if they fought a country like us, it would be a lot different. It would be a whole lot different. There'd be nothing soft about it. Nothing soft about it. Let me see what people are saying here. Oh, hey, Soul, great to see you. Great to see you. Yeah, it is all for nothing, Soul. Yeah, the whole conflict is for nothing. We've done nothing but waste. We have wasted immense amounts of resources. We've wasted immense amounts of money, and now we're wasting immense amounts of lives of the volunteers that go there from Western nations who just get out of the military and then sign on with these groups like the Mozart group or whatever they call it, and they go over there and fight. They said Mozart, PMC, was pulling out. They were pulling out of that conflict because their casualties were too heavy. And this is a Western mercenary outfit, a PMC called Mozart. I guess it was just a spin on the Wagner group. Wagner and Mozart, they were two musicians. So the Mozart group pulled out of the conflict because their casualties were far too heavy. They were far too heavy. So what does that tell you? It tells a lot. It tells a whole lot. So you've got all this going on. You've got this whole conflict about to end. And I don't see them waiting a whole lot longer. They canceled their regular press briefing for a reason, because they're about to make some kind of a big move. That would be the only logical guess, especially after this massive buildup they did. That would be the only logical guess, is that they're going to try and bring this thing to an end soon, because it's not only the responsible thing to do, it's also good in the sense that it'll prevent World War III from breaking out prematurely. Because if you look at prophecy, it's really not time for that just yet. Some other things still have to happen. According to the book of Jeremiah, we have to have a famine, which is a collapse. If you're in a famine, you're in a collapse. Okay? We have to have a collapse. We've got to have, after that, a Syrian-style multi-faction internal conflict. It says conflict or violence will erupt between various leaders, plural, leaders like faction leaders. Then we get invaded sometime after that by these massive invasion forces, predominantly Chinese, of course, because of their size and power, but also Russia, probably the second biggest contributor, and then their other allies. So that stuff has to happen. So I think what Russia's going to do is they're going to just bring this thing to a close, because they don't want to even give us an opportunity to interfere in whatever plans they already might have had. They don't want to give us any type of opportunity to interfere with whatever it is they're trying to do. They're just going to bring this thing to a close, wind it down. They've done immense damage to the West already by getting us to commit all this stuff, all this money, all these weapons and ammunition, all these lives now that are being thrown away for nothing, all these lives. They're going to bring this thing to a close soon because they see that they've done the damage that they wanted to do, within reason, and it's probably the most responsible thing to do for them to prevent any type of unnecessary escalations because it's not time for that yet. They have their own plans, just like the other nations, like China has their own plans, Russia has their own plans. They're coordinating their plans together because they're the closest of allies. So they're going to coordinate this in such a way to where we're already left hollowed out and depleted anyway. So they don't want to give any type of time for any sort of mishaps to occur. Mishaps, like any type of FFs or anything like that. I know when Shoigu called all these regimes from around the world and said to them, you better not pull an FF or we're going to stick our boots so far up your ass, shit will come out of your mouth. I bet he said something like that to them. Even so, the Russians know. They're not stupid. They know that there's unhinged people. There's very unhinged people in Western regimes that would do something stupid like that, even though it wouldn't make much sense and it would get nothing done other than, end them. They're of the mindset that these Western leaders are of the mindset that if we can't have our way, we're just going to burn everything down, So that's what they're thinking. And Russia doesn't want to give them time to really be able to, let those elements even be able to conduct something like that. So I think they're going to bring this thing to an end quickly. And then after that, you're going to see a lot more nations start to fall in line along the Chinese and Russian orbit. Because China and Russia, they're like an axis. They're an axis upon which the rest of the world revolves. Because China is the number one superpower and Russia's the number two. They form an axis of the Eurasian bloc around which the rest of the Eurasian bloc revolves. They're already working on their own reserve currency for BRICS. That'll be the one world currency because after World War III and the West is destroyed, that's your one world currency right there. It'll be an Eastern currency. It'll be the BRICS money. So there's your one world currency. They're forming their alliance, their axis, and you're going to see a lot of nations because like Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, he said this would be a major loss for NATO if the situation in the proxy conflict didn't turn out in some sort of positive way for the West. He said it would be a massive loss for NATO, and it will be. It'll be a shocking loss. This might even be the thing that ends NATO. It could end NATO. It could end it. You'll see all the nations just, go their own ways, So that's what's happening. This thing is winding down. It's coming to a close. And what better time to do it than in the wintertime? Even Gonzalo Lira said that he lost power again in Kharkiv, and Kharkiv's close to Russia. So, the Russians, they supply with their electric grid, they supply some of those cities near the border with power, the terminals go right through there, the lines, the power lines and such, and substations, they can route power into those areas, but, he's lost power because the Russian missile attacks have been growing in intensity. They've been growing in intensity. They're taking apart the grid in the worst time of the year. It's extremely cold over there right now. The ground's freezing up nice and good, too. Oh, yeah, they're going to take full advantage of that. Very soon, they're going to bring this thing to an end. The people aren't going to have the will to fight in the winter without power, without a way to stay warm. There's already stories of a whole shit ton of those proxy soldiers getting, frostbite, gangrene, they're losing limbs from it. So, it's a disaster. Because they have to live in these trenches where it's cold and wet, muddy, damp, They're getting sick. They're getting pneumonia. They're losing limbs from frostbite. I mean, it's a disaster. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So the whole thing is winding down. But I'm going to get on my last topic here after I talk to the chat. See how everybody's doing. This is a really good Friday show. It's really good. I feel like I've been able to cover a lot so far. Oh, let's see. Who's in here? Push all these buttons. That's not letting me see. Oh, okay, I can't see it. Anyways, my last topic. Last topic is this. Okay, here we go. Hey, Unorthodox and Wild Animus, great to see you. Sylvia, TJ, and Grandma Deb, hey. And Rebecca, and I think A was in here, just the letter A, and who else? Soul, of course. Always good to see Soul. And Shadow Mask, and wow, I got a good chat going. And Aaron, and good to see you, Aaron. Thank you. Hey, you're more than welcome to comment. I like actually interacting with people in either the comments or in the chats. It's good. I don't mind answering questions or talking about certain things. I don't mind at all. Feel free to enjoy the chats. There's a lot of good, like-minded people in here. Mary, good to see you too, Mary. I didn't see you sneak in there. Yeah. So here's the thing. They're going to wait, like I was just getting done saying about over there in the proxy conflict. Like I said in my past couple lives I've done, my live streamings, I said that they would most likely wait until the weather was horrendously cold here. Horrendously cold throughout this whole country, or at least most of it, before there would be more hanky-panky with the power grid. Think about it. I mean, they would wait for the worst conceivable time to shut the grid down. I've been saying that, and I've been seeing confirmations of it just today. I mean, whatever you think of Dabu, he started talking about it, I mean, I'm not like real big on these huge channels unless they were already sort of big before the algos came along. But, he said that he basically said what I said for the most part, that not only is there a high likelihood of hanky-panky going down, but also, interestingly enough, allegedly, he said this, I don't know if it's true or not, but allegedly, Texas got some type of threat mail, the power companies. So I don't know if that's true or not. I can't confirm that, but if it is true, it just shows you that they have full intent of carrying out a type of FF type of event. Okay? They have the full intent of doing some type of FF with the grid at the worst conceivable time. So remember, always dress in layers. Wear several layers of pants, 2 or 3 layers of pants. Wear sweatpants, put a pair of jeans on over your sweatpants, or if you're wearing uniform pants like I like to wear, I've got my German uniform, my Chinese uniform. I wear sweatpants underneath that, a couple layers of pants at least. If you have those types of snow pants, they're like suspenders that are like, but they're like really thick insulated type of pants. There's also like the type that the fishermen wear up in Alaska. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, but they're for snow. If you have the snow pants, you can put that on over your regular pants, and underneath that, you could be wearing sweatpants. And then of course, for your shirt, you could be wearing a few long sleeve shirts, and over that, you wear a light jacket, and then over that, you wear a heavy jacket, like a parka. I have my old Army jacket from basic training because I got to keep that because we were switching from the old BDUs to the ACUs, which were like the urban terrain type of camouflage. Blends in really good with like rock quarries, gravel pits, urban terrain. It actually is pretty effective for those purposes. Not so much in the woods unless you like dyed it woodland colors, but for urban terrain, yeah. I mean, it's a color of concrete, like rubble, concrete, that type of color, but or gravel. It's I got to keep that heavy coat, the old BDU coat, is what I'm getting at, because we were switching uniforms from the old BDU to the ACU when I was getting into the Army, so I got to keep my woodland coat. So that is a nicely insulated coat, and it fits very well, fits extremely well right over the armor that I have, like I was wearing a few live streams back. That coat fits over me, armor and all. Like when I'm wearing that armor, it still fits. So you want something big like that as like an overcoat, you know, like something heavy, like a parka, overcoat, whatever you want to call it. Something that'll cover up, even if you're wearing like a plate carrier or body armor, full body armor, like what I have, you want something that'll fit even over that. And under that, you want to be wearing a few layers, like you want to be wearing a light jacket, and then under that, some long sleeve shirts. Like me, my uniform tunic, they call it a tunic. It's the thing that goes over your undershirt. It's like, it looks like a jacket, but it's called a tunic. The tunics to the military uniforms, they're basically like a long sleeve shirt, but they're meant to go over an undershirt. So, under that, if you're wearing all that, you're going to be pretty warm. There's no reason that even if you lose power, that you shouldn't be warm. And you should wear a few layers of socks, but always remember, change your socks because they will get damp. And if it gets cold inside of a building, your feet are going to get raw and nasty. So you better change those socks at least once a day. At least once a day. Ideally, 2 times a day. If you don't have a way to wash them right then, at least dry them out while you're wearing a new pair. Dry them out. If you have to, like if you're in an emergency, you have no way to wash anything, dry out the old socks while you're wearing a new pair or a few new pairs. I'm giving the best advice I can. A lot of us are going to find ourselves in situations where, all the modern amenities and conveniences are going to be gone. They're going to be gone. And you're going to have to work with what you got to work with, whatever that might be. So keep your head warm and keep your feet warm. And if your hands get cold, wear gloves or mittens, even inside the house. So I have a pair of work gloves. They're really good work gloves because you can still actually operate your defense tools very well. You can operate your defense tools very well with the types of gloves I have. They're like thin working gloves, like those mechanics type of gloves. Those are really good, and they keep your hands just warm enough to where you shouldn't have any issues. But you can get things like walking pneumonia or just regular pneumonia if you expose your feet to the elements or your head too long. So, within a building, though, no matter what happens, if you're within some type of a structure, it's always going to be a bit warmer than it is outdoors, regardless of what happens. If you're inside, you're not all the way exposed to the elements. It'll probably get pretty damn cold in your house, but it's manageable. It's manageable. You can also get under a bunch of blankets. So the best, most practical, most common sense advice I can give. A lot of people don't know all these things. You have people in parts of this country that aren't used to cold weather. They don't think about dressing in layers, but that's the smartest thing a person can do. I learned that when I was very young. I wear like 3 pairs of jeans when I would go out sledding, in the wintertime up in the Northeast, or, in Iraq, under my uniform pants, I would have like long johns on, and then over that I'd have sweatpants, and then I'd wear my uniform pants, because Iraq is a different kind of cold. Iraq gets like frigid in the wintertime. That is a cold ass place to be in the winter, and it's scorching hot in the summer. There's really no transition. It's either really hot in Iraq, like in the summertime, or it's really cold in the wintertime. That's the Middle East for you, I guess. But places like that, you have to dress in layers. People died or got very ill when power was lost two years ago because they didn't know these things. They didn't do these things. Had they done them, they'd have been a lot better off. They'd have been fine. They'd have been fine. So, see what everybody's saying. Just be ready, though. Be ready, because Hanky Panky could come at the worst possible time with the grid. I advise everybody to keep your phone charged on a regular basis. If you're not using it, plug it up. Plug it up. Don't forget to. You don't know when you could lose power and for how long. So you would like your phone to be operating so that if you need help or something happens or an emergency comes up, you can call other people, text them, whatever. Or you can see, when the weather is supposed to improve or what's going to happen with it. It might get worse or whatever. You need to have your phone charged. So don't forget to do that, because you never know when you're going to lose that power. All right. Say my farewells. If anybody asks me anything, I guess I'll answer. Oops. Yeah, exactly, Wild Animus. I wouldn't even use that in the house. Like if you're planning on going to sleep, blow your candles out. Don't let them on all night. You got to blow the candle out. If you're going to leave a room that has a candle in it, you need to blow that candle out even if you're leaving the room, because you don't know what could happen. I've got 3 cats. Okay? They like to jump up on all kinds of shit and they knock stuff over. That's the last thing you need is a fire starting because one of your animals, it could be a dog, a cat, whatever, knocks candles over or whatever. Be responsible. Be responsible. Use good common sense. Make sure that if you're leaving a room or if you have to go anywhere away from a candle, blow it out. Blow it out. Don't take any risks, because that can be very bad, very dangerous. So, let's see. Yeah, exactly, Rebecca. All right, everybody. Can't see a lot of the chat, so I only see a few. Yeah, be careful with those too. Oh yeah, no problem, Bob. You're welcome here anytime, Bob Hawk. Welcome. I have a lot of good information on this channel. I have a lot of good resources in my playlist. I make amateur documentaries. I mean, they're sort of low budget, but the information and the research that was compiled and the creativity to make them, to make hypothetical scenarios, is top notch. It's very top notch. It'll convey concepts of exactly how these things look and why and how, with real facts, figures, information, capabilities, everything. Everything. I have a lot of good information. Then all my regular shows I have in 2 different playlists. I have the Friday show playlist and I have the miscellaneous show playlist for all my different streams. And my civil conflict documentary, Second American Syrian-style civil conflict docuseries, that was a really good one. That was comprised of 5 different streams. that were, because of how, all the time you can use to stream on. I decided to do them live because of my older stuff. I wasn't able to live stream at the time when I was doing my older stuff, so I had to make them into a big series of a ton of short videos. But now that I could live stream, my audio book, which is what I'm working on now, almost getting up there, almost done with it. But my audio book and my Second American Civil Conflict docuseries, they're very long but excellent. They give a lot of good perspectives. The invasion story, the Chinese-Russian invasion story audiobook, that's more of like an on-the-ground perspective from characters. I used that. I used my personal experience from Iraq mixed with what I know about our enemies, their capabilities, how they do things, and a bunch of other stuff to write that. I also typed out typed stories. The typed stories are further back in my community tab, but it takes a lot to keep scrolling back and reading each part, and I had to misspell and abbreviate a lot of words just so that the algos would leave them up so that they wouldn't take them down. So if you have a computer or a PC, that's better for reading those than a phone because it's easier to scroll back and read each part. But if you like to listen, I have the audiobook where I actually read to people. I'm reading a story. So the story and the typed stories, I mean the audiobook and the typed stories go along with 96 Hour Invasion playlist, which is the battle maps, but the stories are a character level point of view, like a street level point of view, so that I can show you what it's like on the ground. And then in the documentary is to show you what it's like from a map level view, like what's happening on the battle maps. So I've got a lot of resources. I also have the Pacific Northwest one that goes with the 96 Hour Invasion series, but it's a separate playlist. It's shorter. It's like 10 videos or something like that. And then I have the Community tab story review, which reviews the stories that happened in Community tab that I typed out. And I highlighted very important aspects of those that people should pay attention to in order to benefit their survival odds, like their odds of survival out in nature. It'll help with a lot of that and understanding it. So I hope everybody enjoyed this stream. This was one of my better Friday shows, I feel. So I'm going to say farewell. Thank you all for coming. Yeah, no problem, Grandma Deb, and BD, good to see you, and Bob, and Grandma Deb, Rebecca, Wild Animus, everybody. Thank you all for coming. Thank you. And Soul, and Unorthodox, and P4 Plenty, great to see you. All right, you all have a very blessed evening.